Today we are talking about psychological tips and tricks that you can use to get ahead in life. Enjoy. Watch and or listen while we tackle tough and sometimes taboo topics filmed live over drinks. This platform allows us to articulate our thoughts and challenge our beliefs. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
All right, we are live. Welcome to SipTalk, episode 258. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by
Diana Jerez.
And
you do the intro, not me.
James, the Boswell, philosopher, philanthropist, philatelist, phlebotomist, a man of many PHs out of Charleston, South Carolina. We are in Midtown Manhattan, the new real estate office of DiGiulio, our newest venture in real estate. We are just getting set up. The audio, the video, the comfortability of the chairs still in question, but here we are, here to talk about psychology, the psychology of sales, the psychology of getting what you want. And apparently we're going to talk a little bit about Donald Trump and moving to Poland. James, I got to ask you, how's it hanging down there in sunny South Carolina?
It's been way too sunny. We're in a drought.
We are, yeah, we're in a drought in New Jersey too. There's a fire ban. Do you have a fire ban in Charleston?
I don't know.
No backyard fires is what they're saying.
I haven't tried lighting the neighborhood kids on fire recently, so.
Well, so I'm really hoping with this new setup, the audio quality is on point. We've got TikTok, we've got Instagram, we've got YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. We're off Twitter for some reason. I don't know what's going on with Twitter, and I have a feeling, TikTok being as liberal as it is, we'll be off TikTok pretty soon. Just a matter of me saying the wrong thing here. So
yeah, it's really just a matter of time. Like at some point, we just need to speed run this.
Well, I think that's probably we need to learn the phrases that we can't use, and then from there, then we just we lock it in.
I mean, if we're talking about Trump, there's gonna be a lot of phrases. We're just gonna get banned because he said a lot of phrases.
Well, yeah, if we're quoting Trump, we might be knocked off almost immediately.
Well, which is wild.
You're quoting the former president of the United States and potentially, I don't know if you've been following the political futures, James. I hear there's a recent uptick for Trump.
There is, and I've been having nightmares about it, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm serious about that.
So, but really, the topic today is psychological tips and tricks to get what you want, and I think we've got a few on here. You wanted to you were going to hold a dance party. You were going to do like an anti-Trump rain dance, right? Is that what the situation was?
Well, I wanted to do a quick catch up because it's been like a month.
Okay, yeah, it had. So we have. We're not going to get too much into it today because really, there's a lot going on my end with the real estate business. We've reopened the brokerage, which is very exciting for us. It's also an immense amount of work for me and hopefully for the agents. Diana has been on the podcast before. She hosted the Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader episode, where I got washed out on that one. That was a really tough one for me. I could tell you from the get-go I wasn't smarter than the fifth grader. That one just kind of cemented it for me. But so we got the new real estate.
I mean, luckily for you, it wasn't a shock to anybody else either.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. But the real estate office, it's kind of been in the works for 2.5 weeks or so. Our lease started on the 15th and is now the 24th as of this filming. And it's a lot of work to cram it to get in this office operational, from the furniture, from the painting, from the desks, to the chairs. These chairs ship in, they need to be assembled. A lot of furniture you get now needs to be assembled. Some of the things were faster to just try to get from the Facebook Marketplace. We have a sofa out here from my basement. We got lots of computers. that I managed to get shipped here in time. The monitors, lots of things. So we're happy.
Have you what? 2 questions.
Yeah.
When do you expect to be operational?
Oh,
And what?
this day 1 of opening, we had our release signing in the conference room.
Yeah.
So
I had
today?
Well,
No,
yeah.
Monday.
Monday. We opened on Monday. We had a deal in the works. We had a client here, so that is cool.
All right. Second question.
Yeah.
What's the name of your business?
So we were formerly DiGiulio Group Real Estate. Now we're just DiGiulio for legal reasons.
Okay, I want his opinion though. DiGiulio, you know how Sirhat? Are you familiar with Sirhat?
Nobody's familiar with Sirhat.
Sirhat, he has his logo. It's like Sirhat period. I want us to be DiGiulio period. So it's one word. Don't get confused.
What she
it's
doesn't.
Statement.
She wants the company to be called. So the legal name is DiGiulio Management LLC. But we'll be DBA DiGiulio. Diana would like to. She does not realize the ship has sailed on this. She's still pushing for it. But she'd like to be DiGiulio dot or DiGiulio period, which I think is
cool.
Is just
No.
makes things more complicated. I want to fast forward to these psychological trips, but I know you want to talk a couple of other things.
You know what? I'm going to hold off on the Trump stuff because I'm going to pitch this right now for everybody that's listening. Like, I want to make next week the James's plea to everybody to please just don't do this.
So
just don't vote for Trump. And I'll put together well over an hour's worth of research in terms of like an hour's worth of content of research to talk about every possible way that Trump is a terrible idea for president. So we can skip over the Trump stuff for tonight.
This is interesting though, because you guys have different point of views, do you?
Well,
I don't know.
Here's what I've said. As I've said, Trump is more likely than not going to be the next president. So I've had to come to terms with it. I didn't think he had a shot in 2016. And sitting there watching election night coverage, my jaw just got closer and closer to the floor, which now might be padded by a little fur because I've been growing this beard out since I've been, I guess, I don't know, working on the office.
Those that are live, do we like the beard? Do we not like the beard?
Oh yeah, Diana wants to know. So we can see. By the way, we can only see your comments tonight. We're missing our co-producer Rash Galeb. He's not feeding us your comments on TikTok and Instagram. So if you want us to read your comments, you got to join us on Facebook or YouTube or Twitch. You make the comments there, we can see them. Unfortunately, these cameras are too far away from us. We're not gonna. Diana really wants to be able to see what's going on here.
The comp said Trump 2024.
Yeah, well, I think
and
the amount of people that are
tune in next week, and I'll spend an entire hour explaining why you're wrong.
Someone said Justin looks like Santa Claus. What do we say?
Damn, Santa Claus 1. I didn't think he was bald.
Yeah.
Hat. So let's see. Do you want to get into these psychological tips and tricks?
Real quick. Just on like you went to the Dominican Republic like a week or two ago, and speaking of Spanish, I am looking at like Spanish places to move to if Trump wins.
Well, that's James speaks Spanish very fluently.
There was a time where I spoke it fluently. I think if I were to spend like 6 weeks in Spain, I'd be back up to speed. But
so James is thinking if Trump gets elected, he's going to flee the country, sell his home, or maybe rent it out, and he'd like to go somewhere, ideally where they speak Spanish. Less of a learning curve for him, but I feel like he's pretty open. He just sent us a castle in Poland that he was considering buying.
I mean, how cool would that be? Where do you live? That castle.
I might visit you once a decade, I feel like. But
why wait till Trump gets elected if you think it's so cool? Why not right now?
I think he's pretty content in the current political climate of the United States.
Are we? Oh, well.
Although you're not a target here in Midtown Manhattan, we're a little bit more of a target if
Oh yeah.
If the U.S. gets a little aggressive. So where are we getting? How are we? What was was this segue into psychology? Because
I don't know.
I just push it full force through. But now we're on Trump. We're on Dominican Republic. Well, long story short, so I went to Dominican Republic. I signed a lease and then left for Dominican Republic, which is arguably not the best time to go on vacation. But I will say it gave me a little bit of brain space where I was forced to be removed from business, and I made the decision very quickly to make this happen. So it forced me to be in a place where I couldn't be nose deep in my work, and I was forced to kind of have the brain space and sit there with a notebook and a pen and sit in front of the computer to make shit happen. So it was an interesting benefit of taking a vacation, step out of New York City for a week.
And it makes me think, you know what, this is not on one of the list, but in terms of like a good little psychology trick is anytime you're thinking about buying something, just wait one day.
Yeah, that's not a good psychological trick for us salespeople. But what I do is when something really big happens, or especially in the times where I get really, really upset, rather than just making a decision. So when shit hits the fan, or like there's some crazy shit, like I don't know, like huge argument with somebody, or like something that could potentially doom your business, or a deal that's on fire, I most of the time get this really odd sense of calm, and I usually just remove myself in the situation and either go for a walk or spend some time just like thinking about it, and in some cases not thinking about it, and remove myself, and that space gives me a different perspective when I come back to it. Would you agree with that? Would you think that might be the different perspective of having that day later decision?
It's you get to remove yourself from whatever emotions are connected with the immediacy of the decision, and a day later you can make a better decision because those emotions are nowhere near as strong. And I remember, like, when I was refereeing, one of the things they told us is very often in games, players or coaches will react strongly to a decision that you make on the field. And what they told us in terms of like managing that and at times punishing that is like the first 5 to 10 seconds after an event, people have very little control. So like you give a lot more grace for, I guess, like 10 to 20 seconds after something happens. So like people get to have their reaction, and then
you don't
like,
counterreact.
You don't counterreact, but like in like if their reaction is bad enough, like they punch somebody, like yeah, you got to toss them. But like yeah, but and if they're throwing, like if they're screaming about something for 5 or 10 seconds, you don't always let it go, but you're more likely to. But if 2 or 3 minutes has gone by, or even like 30 to 60 seconds, and they're still hemming and hawing about it, it's no longer in the realm of pure emotion, and that's when you have to deal with it. And so, like, we were always trained, like, a lot of times if coaches were upset about something, say, coach, can't talk about it right now, I'll get back to you like at the next stoppage of play. And that would usually be a minute or two. And that way that gives them time to calm down. And then if they're still being a dick about it, then you can say, all right, well, the immediacy of the situation is past, and I'm going to be less willing to put up with the theatrics. But usually that wouldn't happen because they'd have a minute or two to think about it as to what they wanted to say to you.
Yep. What else do you have on your list here of psychological tips and tricks?
Instead of asking somebody, what do you want? Make 2 or 3 suggestions and then have them pick from those options.
So, well, I think that is a derivative of the paradox of choice. So rather than say, what do you want for dinner? You say, hey, I'm thinking pizza or Mexican. Which would you prefer?
Mm-hmm.
Because the paradox of choice is that the more options there are, the more difficult it comes to make a decision. Question for you. This is a new office space. Do you hear those silence?
I sure do.
Oh, they're driving me. They're driving me nuts. I had a lesson I gave this morning, and I thought I was going to have a fucking aneurysm. So the solution in New York City to, and this is double pane glass, by the way, but the solution is that there's one big company that does it. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but they effectively install plexiglass windows over your windows, which help to mitigate the sound. So that's probably one of the next moves in the office. That apparently every time I came here, viewing the space, it wasn't really an issue. But apparently this week has been a week full of big time emergencies for.
You could also get a bunch of soundproofing foam. It's not that expensive.
Yeah, but the sound is coming through the windows. That's the tough part.
And the aesthetic of it, I don't know how that.
So.
But yeah, like I remember when I was in hotels, like that was something that we were trained to do. Is like a guest is upset about something, and so instead of asking, like, well, how can we make this better for you? Instead, just offer two things to them. Say like, oh, we can upgrade your room, or we can comp you like a bottle of wine. Which would you like?
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant.
And then that person, they've made a decision, so they have ownership about it. So they can't complain that you didn't give them what they wanted because they chose what they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, you made the decision to give the options, but at the end of the day, they are responsible for making the choice, and it becomes their decision.
Right.
Let's see. Are you familiar with the principle of reciprocity?
Possibly, but
so basically, especially this comes from a sales perspective, sales angle, I suppose. If you do something for someone, you go out of your way for someone, they feel indebted to you. And therefore, when you ask for something, they're more likely to do it. So if I say buy you lunch and then go ask for the sale, you're more likely to feel bad and say yes. I guess feel bad is effectively what it is, but it's basically an obligation to give back. When somebody does something for you, you're in debt.
It sounds to me like you're describing the sales tactics of the entire timeshare industry.
No, that's exactly how timeshares work. But basically, if I ask you to give me a ride to the airport, now I feel like I need to do something for you, right? So that's exactly how timeshares work. That was they give you this free vacation, and then they give you lots of free shit, and then they basically put you in a place where they promote what they're selling. And there's multiple. It's all psychology. The whole.
Well, and you feel really guilty for taking all this free stuff from them.
Yeah, I mean, what did you think? What do you think you were doing?
So this time last year, I was in Napa Valley, staying in some really nice resort, and that's exactly how they got me so close to signing up for a timeshare. I even had them run my credit, do all these things. They were showing me the interest rates and everything else they was something to, and I was just like, damn! Wait, after all of it. I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, let me take a second. Like, this is just all too quickly.
That was the first thing James threw out there. Let me take a second. Well, because
it's how they get you. I mean, the second I got to that resort, the first thing they do is greet you with champagne.
Oh, also, they get you fucking liquored up.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was Napa Valley. Hello, California. So the first thing I got was champagne when I walked through the door. We went to the receptionist. They gifted me a bottle the second I told them that it was actually my anniversary. So they gifted me a bottle. Oh, amazing. I go into my suite. There's already a bottle also waiting there on ice. So I'm like, wait, I've only been here for like 5 minutes. I already have 2 full bottles of wine. I'm like, I don't know how. I'm already.
Listen, I remember this story, and I know that Diana may not have bought a timeshare, but she bought a shit ton of wine.
And a subscription that I still haven't been able to get out of. For very expensive, nice, fine Napa Valley wine.
Nice, fine Napa Valley wine. Here's another one I think that's probably a bit of a follow-up is commitment and consistency. Once you can get someone to agree to do something, they are more likely to agree down the line. So, for example, if I'm taking a client out to look at homes and I say, hey, if we find a place that meets X, Y, and Z, you'll be able to put in the offer today. They want to stay consistent with that. So you can use that to your advantage down the line. People here, what people like to do especially with new people, is establish a sense of identity. So they want you to understand who they are, and you can use that to your advantage. You help them establish who they are as a decisive person who makes moves, who doesn't sleep on things, as somebody who likes to take charge, owns their decisions, and like I'm feeding this language to somebody, um, and then down the line they want to stay consistent with who they want you to believe that they are.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to another one that I don't have on the list, but you and I have talked about it a lot, and it's similar to what you're talking about, but it's also another sales tactic that works in other areas in life, and that's anchoring.
Give
So
me, I use anchoring all the time when I talk about sales training, but give me an example of anchoring.
let's say I'm a car salesman, and I got a car on the lot that's listed for 15, and real dollar value, it's probably worth 10, right? And I get somebody that walks in that's interested in it. I'm going to tell them, you're going to see a lot of these cars going for like $18,000, $19,000. And you're anchoring them to think that this car, like that these cars are worth close to 20,000. Like, yeah, you're going to find a lot of these cars for 18 or 19,000 on other lots. And they're not going to have the ability to research that to see that it isn't true. And now you've established their baseline expectation of 18 or 19,000. Be like, I got this baby for 15.
But I mean, that's the idea that Costco uses when you walk into a Costco or other big box wholesalers. Up front in front of the store, they have those like $8,000 TVs and the $900 air purifier and the stand mixer for $700. And then you go in, and by contrast, everything seems more. I mean, those are things you want. You're like, oh shit, $700 stand mixer. This must be top of the line. This must be. I could do so much with this. And then you go in and there's some other products for like $40, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to get this. This is nothing, because they've anchored you at a higher level. I also use anchoring when you anchor the idea or concept in a physical object. So as an expert salesperson, something that an expert salesperson might do would be to anchor an idea or concept in, if you were to have probably the best beverage for like a podcast, it would be, I don't know, what do you think would be the best beverage for like a podcast?
Beer.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught both of those, but I basically, when I said expert salesperson or best beverage, I tapped two different things. And for the person that's engaged in the conversation, I've implanted those ideas or concept into a physical object. Are you familiar with that angle of anchoring?
Less so.
Well, so the thing is about expert salespeople is they're very.
I can't unsee it now. Just
It's an audio and a visual podcast. I'm tapping my chest as I say expert salesperson. So if you're watching, it makes a little more sense. But that's something that I used to use all the time, especially when I worked for the rental car place, and I would sell like safety and security and insurance and GPS. I would sell the ideas behind them, and I don't know. I felt like that gave me once I started doing it, I saw a big uptick in sales. So,
well, yeah, and it's when it comes to sales, you're doing one of two things, but never both, and that's you're either selling the price or you're selling the effects.
Here, if I walked into an apartment that I knew was perfect for someone, but for whatever reason, maybe they were just an indecisive person, so they might also believe it's perfect, but they're just not able to make a decision. Then I have to have a rational conversation with them about why this is the right place. So I might not say to someone, "This is the best apartment for you. You need to take it." I might say to someone, "When you find the best place for you, and you've seen a lot of other options that just don't work." What am I doing? I'm pointing at the apartment saying this is, I'm saying,
right, and pushing the other stuff away.
When you find the best place, I'm not saying this is the best place for you. I'm just saying, hey, when you find the best place, the other options, they just don't stack up. And then, when you find the best place, that's the time to make a decision. I'm not saying this is the best place to make a decision, but effectively through my body language, I am. Fair enough.
Think about it in terms of when you're looking to buy something. you're looking for one of two things. You're either looking for the lowest possible cost or you're looking for the best possible features. And if you're looking for one, you tend not to care about the other. So you got to decide.
I think I don't necessarily agree with that. If you're looking for the lowest possible cost, you're still looking for the best possible features. And that's what gets, what's difficult when people
Let me give you an example. Your car's low on gas. Do you care about whether you're buying from BP or Exxon or or Shell? No, you just care about what the price for a gallon of unleaded is. You're just shopping for price because it does, like, the features of one versus the other are immaterial to you.
Well, but that's effectively every American believes one gas from BP and one gas from Exxon is the same gas. You got to come up with a better. If you're searching for the cheapest car, do you care if it's Honda or Honda's not even the cheapest car. What are the cheapest cars out there these days?
I'm Dominican. I only know Honda.
I don't know.
But my point is, like, do you care that much between brands or what?
I guess, like, if you're looking for a used car and your budget's $3,000, like, you don't really care if it's a Chevy or a Ford or a Kia. You just need something for $3,000.
I don't know. I think some people can be pickier than you'd expect in that scenario. But I understand where you're going with that. What else you got on the psychological tips and tricks here?
We've talked about this one in a dating context, but it's good also in, like, negotiations, which is
you should date me because here's
no. I mean, dating is kind of a negotiation, but
I agree. Yeah,
with, like, allowing for silence and just allowing for a lull in conversation, and people will naturally fill it.
So there's a thing about pausing, and we do this in sales. When you pause and stop talking, and it gets to that point where it almost becomes a little uncomfortable, oftentimes, if you continue to wait, the other person's going to speak. So generally, who speaks first has the lower hand, if that makes sense. And you can get people to say things that, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example of this.
Well, I would say that the whole pause in the middle of sentences strategy can be overdone, and then you just sound autistic.
Well,
I would say that pauses are important to have.
You have to be good at it.
But what you also have to do is you need to vary the cadence of your voice in terms of the pattern of your words. Is you say some things in kind of a pretty quick succession, and then you slow down to emphasize other things.
So I'll give you an
example. When you do that well, it really draws people in.
I'll give you an example as a salesperson. So generally, especially in New York City, people are generally shopping already at the top of their budget, and everything is smaller and more expensive than they want. So I might go out with somebody and say, so were you expecting to find the perfect home today? And then most salespeople would then follow with, because it's really difficult, especially given the high prices. What I would say is, are you expecting to find the perfect home today?
I don't think that's a good question to begin with.
Well, but I would just wait, because they would fill in the blanks. Because here's what happens. I say, are you expecting to find the perfect home today? And guess what?
Chicken butt.
If I pause, it gets awkward. Okay. Now, what happens is most people, when it gets awkward, continue speaking. Were you expecting to find the perfect home today? Because it's really tough given the market, is what most people are going to do. Now, when I say, were you expecting to find the perfect home today? What's that? If I pause and don't and agree within myself not to say the next line, what's that person going to say? Yes? Because most cases, they're going to say, well, no, but I was really trying to find the place that had the biggest, and then I'd say, okay, cool, yeah, because I know the perfect place doesn't exist. You know the perfect place doesn't exist. So given the constraints of your budget and the neighborhood you want to be in, I really think the last one that we saw is going to be the perfect place for you.
The perfect place does exist.
I'm making it exist.
No, It is a castle in Poland.
It's a castle in Poland. Yeah, for
Just
500
not in New York
euros.
City, not in Manhattan.
78 rooms. A moat.
100. I think it was 122 rooms, 78 bedrooms. Right? Is that
Maybe, dude. Think about that. Let's just go with 78. You could throw a party every day for a month and trash one room every single night, and you would
here's the
still
issue
have
though,
48 rooms left.
with such a big house is you have to furnish it.
And you need staff to make
Look,
it.
I'm aware that there's a lot of flaws in this plan, but it's a castle.
All right. Do you have anything else on your list? Because I got a decent list.
I got a few more. I like this one, which is like, if someone's angry and being loud and belligerent, like, one of the easiest ways to calm them down is to just speak softly.
I don't know if that's true.
Oh, it totally is.
You would make me feel stupid, and I was getting more mad.
Yeah, but
As a Latina woman, I'm like, why are you?
I'll give you an example from last week. I'm the fourth official in a college game, and the visiting team goal, like, the ball goes off the crossbar, goes straight up. The goalkeeper like jumps to save the ball, and at the same time, like, the attacker comes in and is challenging for the ball and kind of knocks the goalkeeper to the ground, right? And the goalkeeper holds onto the ball. The referee sees it, but doesn't call a foul. And the assistant coach for the visiting team is yelling out onto the field about wanting us to, like, protect their goalkeeper. And I'm the fourth official, which my main job is to deal with the coaches. So I walk over there and I'm calm.
And of course he's screaming.
And they're yelling out onto the field. And I say, hey, like, I see what happened there. And, like, the head coach wasn't yelling, but the assistant coach was. And so I'm saying, hey, I'm right here. Let's talk. I can explain what just happened there. And they're still yelling. And the head coach goes to the assistant coach, he's right here. You can talk to him. You don't need to be yelling. So because I wasn't yelling or throwing anything back at them, and just by being calm, they immediately calmed down. And we had a conversation, and everybody was happy.
So here's what I find happens often. And in your scenario, you had a third party that asked that person to calm down. But if you're dealing with somebody who's really furious and they're screaming, they're yelling, and you come over and say, hey, I understand you're mad. I wanted to shed some light. Here's what happens is they can't understand you because their brain is going a million miles an hour. Their adrenaline is pumping. So in order for them to even attempt to understand you, which if you continue to speak slowly and calmly, they're going to be forced to, they have to slow down and calm down and, one, stop talking and breathe.
Right.
And then they're effectively coming down to your level. And that has to do with matching and mirroring. And
that's what I'm talking about.
There's a certain dynamic between people that they're comfortable with. And when you understand that, so this is why, like, some people don't understand it. And we call those people close talkers, the people that get way too close to you when they're talking to you. But there's a certain dynamic between people that once you understand, you can play with. And I'll give you an example. So say you were doing a podcast with somebody and you all of a sudden got a little too close to them and made them uncomfortable. They would, now Diana's holding her ground right now, but at a certain point, and I mean, we're obviously trying to fit on the camera, so we're already a little close. But I'll give you maybe a different example. When you go out to eat and you're on a date, and so if you were to watch people on dates, generally what happens is one person talks and the other person listens. And one person will be leaning forward and one person oftentimes is leaning backwards. Now, when the person leaning backwards leans forward, the person who's leaning forward leans backwards. When the person, I'm not saying one person influences the other. First, I'm just saying when one person moves, the other person then moves. So the person who's forward leans back. They've now created extra space, so the person leaning back is going to lean forward. It's just this kind of like mirroring and comfortable dynamic that you can influence, and you can
exploit that dynamic by leaning back at first to getting them to lean in, and then you can lean in, and then they're listening to you and they're leaning in.
Well, you got it. So that means they're more comfortable. But
Right.
yeah, and then for a little while, they're getting more comfortable with your closer proximity. Right.
But I'll give you another example from the refereeing world. This is from an assessor. I wasn't on the game, but I like this. So referee makes a call. Coach is blowing up, yelling about it, right? Referee's in the middle of the field and yells at the coach, "Coach, we're not going to be yelling across the field about things." And the assessor says, "How do you think that worked?"
No, he was already yelling across the field. So
Right. So now the referee's yelling across the field. So like
they've
the whole
established that's him yelling back across the field, saying we're not going to be yelling across the field, established the dynamic to be yelling across the field.
right.
How about mirroring? So I just mentioned mirroring, but so we often exist on different wavelengths. You know, I have X going on in my mind, you have X going on in your mind, but people can sync their. When people are really on the same wavelength and in the moment together, oftentimes subconsciously, not intentionally, their body language starts to sync. Look at Diana and I. How are Diana's hands? How are my hands? Where are our elbows? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Look, we're doing exactly the same thing. I just haven't had the beard between my hands. But our hands are doing the same thing. Our body's doing the same thing. Because we're in the same scenario. We're engaging in the same moment. Now, if Diana was on her phone or something, we'd be out of the moment. But at the end of the day, when we're doing the same thing, it means we're on the same wavelength. So you can actually get somebody to come to your wavelength by catching up to their wavelength and mirroring them, and then now you're following them, right? You're doing what they're doing, but then you can start doing things, and what they'll do is start doing the things that you're doing.
Well,
And
yeah, it's something that
of course it's uncomfortable, and then they're going to change what they're doing because it's obvious and obnoxious what you're doing.
well, and it's actually something that like if you're paying attention to, you can use this as a gauge as to whether or not somebody's interested in you, is see if they're mirroring some of the things that you're doing.
Well, because that means if they're interested in you, they're very much on your wavelength. So if you do something and they do it, then they're vibing with you effectively. Another one that's similar, a little adjacent to this theory, is finding out if somebody is paying attention to you from the other side of the room or somewhere else in the room. So if I yawn or pretend to yawn and somebody's paying attention to me, it means they're kind of checking me out off this. So yawns are contagious. So somebody who's got their back to me is not going to then yawn. They don't know I'm yawning.
What?
But if somebody is paying attention to you, even indiscreetly, they will then yawn.
You know what I really like about the whole yawns being contagious thing is that can be an early way to determine if like a child is autistic.
What?
Seriously, is like autistic children will not experience contagious yawning because they don't have the like social their social reading skills aren't developed. They don't develop naturally. And so
I don't know that I've ever heard that before. And that makes total sense, obviously. It makes total sense. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
So I grew up. My mom always told me if you yawn when someone else is yawning, that's because you have like love towards them. That was like always the mentality. I think in the Latin community, I think we all were told that. So like hearing, like I want to know the actual science behind it. That's so weird.
So if you're Latin or Hispanic, do you agree?
I have a lot of Latino friends, but we all I can only speak for my friends, I guess. But.
I'm curious. I never heard that either.
I'll tell you that like if my roommate's cat yawns, I'll yawn. So, like
you're less autistic than you thought, James.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm so not autistic. I yawn when cats yawn.
Well, what I'm saying is that like there's something about yawning itself that is contagious, and it's not purely human.
Well, I think that goes back to like your lizard brain. There's got to be some value in yawning allows you to take in more oxygen. It wakes you up a little bit. So there's got to be some like when you're like on the plains, it's late, you're tired, but like you got to stay up to like protect against incoming lions or some shit. That like when somebody yawns, everybody yawns, so they all wake up and they all get this refreshed kind of awakeness simultaneously. There's got to be some value in doing that. That's like ingrained in your lizard brain, your cockroach.
Yeah, I really wonder what the evolutionary biology underpinning of the phenomenon is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that you would find that interesting, that can be like an early pseudo test for autism, is whether or not kids experience like yawning contagiousness.
I'm tired. You're just talking about yawning.
Yeah. I've got 2 or 3 more little, like one of them, and this is something that we've talked about before, and it mostly applies to dating, but it doesn't have to apply exclusively to dating, which is sometimes it's not about how the interaction between you and another person goes, but how it looks to everybody else.
You're giving some dirty tips and tricks, James.
It also works in sales, because imagine, we'll go back to, you're a car salesman, right?
I'm curious the example you're going to give in dating, because it's probably what I'm thinking in my head, but go ahead.
But I'll start with car sales. Let's imagine you're a car salesman and there's 10 or 15 people in the showroom and you're working with somebody trying to hammer out a deal, right? And they turn you down and they say, I'm going to take my business elsewhere. If you say, if you make it clear, like if you smile and shake your hand and say, thanks for your business and I hope to see you again, and then they walk out, everybody else in the showroom saw that interaction as positive between you and them.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say, good luck finding a car at a value like this anywhere else in town, like, you'll be back, everyone's gonna be like, this guy's an ass. So you might have lost that sale, but you can either compromise every other sale that walked in that door, or you can make it look like you're friendly and you've got 10 or 15 other opportunities, right?
Give the dating example.
You're in a bar and you're talking up a chick, and it's clear that she's not interested. It's better for you to press the eject button and do it in a friendly way and smile as you walk away from her than for her to, in one way or the other, reject you that in a way that everybody can see.
Okay, that's not the one that I thought you were going to give. I guess my secret's still safe.
Oh.
No, I will give it. I will give it. Oh, I hate some other stuff. So there's. I fucking hate saying this shit out loud. So listen, if I'm gonna go to a bar, not anymore because I'm in a committed, very happy relationship, and I'm gonna talk to a girl, which I don't do now and haven't done for the last several years. In the past.
Old.
In the past. Now I'm old. I have a gray beard. Somebody called me Santa Claus in the comments here. So I'm going to talk to a stranger girl at the bar. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to initiate conversation. I'm going to put my back on the bar. And guess what happens? She then has to, from the third party perspective, face me. And it looks like she has now approached me. Exactly what Diana's doing. Diana just had to move her entire body to face me to even hear me, because that's just how interactions work. So it looks from the third party perspective like this person has approached me and is interested in me, because all I did was put my back against the wall. What most people do, not me, is they do this. Hey, I'm Justin. Nice to meet you. What I'd say is, hey, I'm Justin. It's nice to meet you.
So much work. As a female, though, I'm the one that's usually doing that.
That's the point. That's the point, because generally the gender dynamic is generally that the male approaches a female, and the female is the one that ends with the back. Why? Because the male is the aggressor. So if you as a male are seen to have females interested in you, it ups your social proof.
Right.
With me, I would be like, nah.
Speaking of social proof, I will give you, this is my segue into social proof. the psychological hack of social proof. And that is, if other people are doing something, it must be a good thing to do.
If
So,
all of your friends jumped off a cliff, would you?
well,
No, that's extreme.
it must be a fun thing to do.
If you pass by a restaurant, if there's a long line, you must know the food is really good.
If you see one restaurant is jam packed with people and the restaurant across the street is empty, it must mean the food is better at the busy restaurant. I've heard of people getting in lines all over New York City because sometimes they just have these crazy lines. People get in lines, they don't even know what it's for. And why is that? Social
Because
proof.
people in New York need better hobbies.
People, that's true. People look for the behavior of others to guide their own actions. And that's why testimonials, reviews, endorsements can be very persuasive.
I almost got a bagel today. I didn't even want a bagel, but I saw there was a long line. And I'm like, damn, these bagels must be the best New York City bagels. Like, standing there in line until I had a call.
And then you left. All right. Well,
I got two more. One of these is going to be really quick, but like, what's the best way to avoid workplace drama? Is compliment people behind their back.
Oh.
Behind their back?
Yes, behind their back. They can't like directly know, but it's if you're always the one saying good things about other coworkers, like no one's ever gonna want to talk shit about you because you're like, Justin's the nicest guy in the office. All he says is nice things about everybody else. Why would you say something mean about him?
I agree with that. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, I have this year. I had made the decision to start kind of acknowledging good things that people do, and it's been really tough because I'm really fucking cynical. I'm really fucking cynical. I think I've hit the age of being really cynical. I don't know.
I got to tell you one thing: being younger than you, it only gets worse.
What do you mean being? I don't understand.
I'm saying as you get older, the cynicism deepens.
Yeah. Well, so I listened to. It wasn't even something I thought. I was listening to the radio last night. They were talking about this girl who just did a cover of a song, and then Taylor Swift commented on it, and now this girl's getting famous simply because of a YouTube comment from Taylor Swift. And the radio announcer was like, "I think you're a lot younger than me, so you're probably not cynical yet." And I was thinking, like, well, I think I was pretty cynical at like 20-something years old. But I guess, yeah, your cynicism does like really increase the older you get.
I can't think of an example where learning more decreases cynicism.
Unless you're learning more about your own cynicism.
Yeah,
right?
but you know what I mean? It's like the more you learn about things, the worse they are.
Well, that's what they say. The smartest people tend to like biggest alcoholics. Not always. There's a big curve on that one. But
yeah.
But you're familiar with the studies I'm talking about, right?
I'm thinking more about how like a ton of stand-up comedians have like clinical depression.
That's the same curve. It's the same curve, yeah. And then obviously the people who are not funny at all also have a lot of clinical depression, and then nobody in between does. I mean, some people in between, but
yeah. Here's another one, and this is a trick like that you can use. Like if you've got somebody that's being unreasonable or you disagree with them, if you think that they're making points that just make no sense, instead of telling them why they're wrong, I call this 5-year-old philosopher. Just ask them why. Ask them why over and over and over again. And eventually they're going to run into something that they can't answer. Like, why is that? Like, they're eventually going to have to get to the foundation of whatever their belief is that's completely wrong. And they're going to be like, oh, crap.
That's how I feel about when asking about Trump to someone.
Well, yeah, exactly. So some of the people that love Trump, the more questions you ask, they're just kind of like...
Right. You eventually say, why is that? Why do you believe that? Why is that a good thing? Why is that a good thing? You can just keep on doing that.
So that's called I think it's a version of the Socratic method, is to get somebody to change their mind by asking them questions about what they believe.
It's tangentially related to it. Because the Socratic method, like the way Socrates employed it, was asking very leading questions to get somebody to come to a conclusion But the thing is, the questions in and of themselves were leading. Whereas what I'm saying is, when somebody's being unreasonable or just making ridiculous claims,
You get
don't
that.
ask leading questions. Try and get them to explain themselves.
So, on that note, we have to cover the bar trivia question from our last episode. Do you happen to remember the bar trivia question from our last episode?
You
By
know
the
what's
way,
funny?
There's like fucking 75 emergency vehicles. That's like,
So it's funny, I don't remember the bar trivia question today, but like a week ago I was thinking about, I was like, I think I got that one, but like
all right, so I got you. I really like this one because it stumped me at first, but I was like, I know this. I can't put my finger on it, but I know the answer. I figured out the answer. So Don Juan has two girlfriends that live on opposite ends of the city.
oh yep.
To visit Mary, Don takes the eastbound train. To visit Jane, he takes the westbound train. Don likes both of them equally. So instead of deciding who to visit, he lets fate decide by boarding the first train that comes along while he's on the platform. Each day, Don almost always ends up at Mary's. Why would Don usually end up at Mary's and not James?
I know this.
Now the train comes
They both come at equal intervals.
3 times every hour, and he generally arrives at different times.
So the reason for this is, let's imagine that the train arrives every 20 minutes, right? So 0, 20, 40 for one of the trains. If one of the other trains arrives at like 02, 22, and 42,
that means
that there's only a 2-minute window for him to catch one of the trains, and there's an 18-minute window for him to catch the other.
That's exactly the case.
Wait, what?
All right, hold up. So listen. So if to get the Mary train, all right, that train comes every 20 minutes.
Wait, she's east or west?
So you're
Doesn't
Mary.
matter.
So you're Mary. This is Jane. The train going to you comes every 20 minutes.
Okay.
The train going to Jane also comes every 20 minutes. But this one comes at 3 o'clock, 3:20, and 3:40. This one comes at 3:01, 3:21, and 3:41. Okay. So if I get there at 3:15 and wait, I'm going to end up on the 3:20 train going this way. If I get there at
3:06,
3:06, the 3:01 has already come. So now I just wait. So point is, I'm more likely to go this way because there's more time. Wait, now if I get there at 3 o'clock and 30 seconds, the next train is 3:01, I go this way. If I get there at 3:20 and 10 seconds, I got 50 seconds, then I go this way. But if I get there at 3:03, the next train is so whenever you get there, it's more likely to be the next train off to Mandarin.
Yeah. The only way it could possibly be a 50-50 split is if they are offset by exactly 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly. I thought that was a cool one. Stick around to the end of this episode for the bar trivia question that I don't quite have on me, but I'll come up with. I'm not at home. I got a stack of trivia questions I put together at home that have spent so much time going through so much trivia. I spent so much time coming up, just reading so many trivia questions. But the thing is, they have to be like the ones that are like, oh, duh. It can't be the one that like you have to fucking invent the reason. All right, so I got a few more psychological tips and tricks. We did social proof. Are you familiar with the concept of liking? People do business with people that they like and trust. James, you heard of that?
I mean, it seems obvious.
Yes, it does. Now, you and I have talked about the, not theory, I don't know what you call it, but basically the us and the them.
Well, this gets into the concept of othering is foundational in a lot of ethical theories and philosophy.
Exactly. So what happens is when you meet somebody who's other, so that means their culture is different, or the way they speak is different, or the way they dress is different, or the way they speak is different, or their height is different, or their weight is different, or somehow they're different. You immediately identify them as other. Oh, this is not my clan. This is not my clan. This is not my people. This is not my us. Now, what happens now, the greatest salespeople can almost morph. Now,
I know a guy like that.
I think I do a very good job, and you'll agree with me on this, and I'll explain why. I think I do a very good job at this. Is that, and I have a friend who actually does morph. And you're like, bro, you hung out with this guy for like 3 weeks, now you're like talking like him. That's fucking weird. That's weird. That's this weird chameleon thing. You're just like, I don't like that. Okay, you're trying to be like him. Now, I think, and I think I do this a really good job. Probably it's like my age and my experience, but I think a lot of people, especially as I meet them, they're like, "Oh, I like this guy. He gets it. He gets me. He's got an understanding of the things that I understand. I can see him as an us." Now, you and I have a lot in common. I challenge Diana all the time. Like, Diana, tell me the thing that I don't know. Like, tell me one thing I don't know, and then she'll be like, "Oh, give me something."
Oh, I told you the other day, longaniza.
Okay, yeah, and I said it was sausage. I didn't know anything about it, and she's like, "Oh," and then there was another person who also spoke Spanish. Like, I'm not familiar with that one. But the difference between me and the other person I'm talking about is that I understand this Dominican sausage. I don't pretend to be Dominican, but the Dominican person is like, "Oh, he gets it. He understands. He knows. He's not Dominican, but he's one of us." In a weird sense. But here's the issue that with salespeople, they go out and they're so different they can't relate, and it's that relatability. It's not that you have to be like that person, but you have to be likable and effectively. People like you if you understand who they are.
Yeah.
If you understand, and now if you're not like them right off the bat, they're like, this person doesn't know who I am, and then you have to then win them over. I think I do a very good
hold on.
job.
I'm gonna pull this back to how we started, which is like one of the few praises that I can give to Trump is that he's somehow really good at that aspect of
Well, I'll give it. Go finish. Say what you're saying.
of just he finds a way of being able to appeal to people with whom he shares literally nothing in common.
But it's really, yeah, fine. But he also says things like, where are my gays? The gays like me. The blacks like me. The Hispanics like me. They all like me. They all like me. It's like, wow. All right.
Right. But like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he is clearly lying through his teeth. He puts things in a way that people can find appealing, and it's one of the few skills that I think he actually has.
Wait, he was actually trying to be relatable. Did you see that when he was in a Bronx like barber shop? He was just he was at the McDonald's the other day as well. I'm like, you're trying really hard to be relatable, do like everyday normal people things. And I'm like, that's part of his campaign, though.
Yeah, but like it's baffling to me because like he's horrifically out of place in either of those settings.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't belong. I said he doesn't belong. It doesn't look natural.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But like, for the most part, he's able to pull that off. I'm willing to grant him this one praise of he has an ability to pull that off in a way that makes no sense.
I got a bar trivia question this week. Next, let me give you a couple more things. Scarcity. Obviously, creating scarcity makes people want what they can't have.
Yep.
So if something's in short demand, and in short supply, the demand is going to be increased because the toilet paper, right? Another one is authority. People tend to follow the lead of somebody who appears credible, and not question it. That's why people blindly believe doctors, right? Like, doctor tells you to do some shit.
4 out of 5 dentists recommend this toothpaste.
We are at time. All right. We started a little late. Let's see if we don't cut off here.
We're at 58 minutes. 59.
Well, because we got a little bit of a late start. These things will cut off in a second. I'll give you the bar trivia question for episode 258. What is so fragile that saying the name of it, breaks it? Don't answer it for the next episode. What is so fragile that saying the name of it will break it?
That's something to think about. If anyone has the answers, I want to see in the comments.
What is so fragile that saying its name will break it? You got to go to SipTalkPodcast.com.
I have the answer.
Scroll to the bar trivia question. Answer that question. We're gonna send you some cool shit, like a kick-ass mouse pad.
No, I've got the answer. I'll answer it off the air, not to spoil it.
We'll send you a cool pint glass or a dog T-shirt or some shit that says Sip Talk on it, because I know that's exactly what you've been waiting for. And on that note, thank you guys for joining. Really happy you're all here. I will see you guys next time. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by
Diana Jerez.
and by
James the Bosnator Boswell.
Adios.
Bye.
All right, you made it to the end. Let me know if we missed any psychological tips and tricks in the comments.